Hello everyone and welcome back to our Python series for beginners. In the last tutorial, we learned about conditional statements. In this video, you will learn how to repeat actions in your programs using while loops, for loops, and how to control loops with the break and continue. Are you ready? Let's go. Why do we need loops? Imagine I ask you to print the numbers from 1 to 10. Without loops, you would have to write 10 print statements one after the other. That's boring, long, and not flexible. But with loops, we can do the same task in just a few lines of code using either a for loop or a while loop. Iterative statements. Iterative statements in Python, also known as looping statements, allow the repeated execution of a block of code based on a specific condition or for a predetermined number of iterations. Python provides two main types of iterative statements: the for loop and the while loop. A for loop in Python is used to iterate over a sequence of items. A while loop repeats a block of code as long as a certain condition is true. Here is the basic syntax of loops in Python. A for loop goes through each item in a sequence, like in this example. For I in range 1, 6, print I, which prints numbers 1 to 5. A while loop repeats code as long as a condition is true. For example, starting with I equals 1, we keep printing while I is less than or equal to 5. And increase I each time. So in short, use a for loop for iterating over a known sequence of items. Use a while loop when your repetition depends on a condition that could change during execution. Python sequence. To really understand how for loops work, we need to talk about something called a sequence. A sequence in Python is simply an ordered collection of items, where each item has a specific position. Some sequences are immutable, meaning they cannot be changed, like strings, range, and tuples. Others are immutable, meaning we can modify them, like lists. String is a sequence of characters. Range is a sequence of numbers. Tuple is a collection of items. List is also a collection of items. Now let's open PyCharm and see how we can loop through sequences. First, we'll begin by looping through a string. Let's take this example. For letter in Peter, print letter. So I'll tap on the tab key to autocomplete. Click run. As you can see, we get the letters of the string P-E-T-E-R. So we are looping through the string and print each letter of it. And notice how it prints each character in a new line. Now, before trying looping through a range, let's take a moment to understand how the range function works. Range function. The range function generates a sequence of numbers, which we can loop through in a for loop. The range function can be used in three main ways: range stop, range start stop, range start stop step. Range stop. This form generates numbers starting from 0 up to but not including the stop value, with a default step of 1. Here in this example, it starts at 0 by default and goes up to but doesn't include 6. So it gives us the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Range start stop. This form generates numbers starting from start up to but not including the stop value, with a default step of 1. For example, range 1, 6. So the sequence begins at 1 and stops before 6. So the output is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Range start, stop, step. This form generates numbers starting from start up to, but not including the stop value, with a custom step size. The step can be positive for incrementing or negative for decrementing. In this example, range 3, 12, 2, it starts at 3, stops before 12, and jumps by 2 each time. So we get 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Now let's go back to PyCharm and see an example with range. For I in range 6, print I. So it will generate numbers from 0 up to 5. Let's run this and see. As expected, we get numbers from 0 to 5. Now, if I want to start from 1 instead of 0, I can give it 2 arguments. So for I in range 1, 6. So I want to start from 1 and stop before 6. Let's comment out the previous lines of code. Click run. So as you can see, this time it prints from 1 till 5. And if I want to skip numbers, I can add a step. For example, for I in range 3, 12, 2. Start, stop, step. Print I. So I'll press on the tab key to autocomplete. Click run. So the output is as expected. I start from 3, stop before 12, and jump in steps of 2. The steps can also be negative. Let's try this example. For I in range 10, 3, -2, print I. So here the sequence starts at 10, stops before 3, and decreases by 2 each time because the step is negative. So the loop will print 10, 8, 6, 4. Sequences can also be tuples. Here I will loop through a tuple of numbers and print each one. Numbers equals 10, 20, 30, and 40. For num in numbers, print num. Click on the run button, so I get 10, 20, 30, 40. And finally, let's take an example of looping through a list. We have a list of fruits. Fruits equals, I open the brackets. First item is apple, banana, and let's say orange, and I'll press on the tab key. So for fruit and fruits, print fruit. Click on the run button. So here we are using the for loop and looping through a list. And for each item of this list, we are printing this item. We can also loop through dictionaries, but for now we will stick with these cases. Now that we explored how for loops help us iterate over sequences, let's look at while loops. Remember that while loops continue running as long as a condition remains true. We start with I equals 1. The condition is while I is less than or equals 5, print I plus equals 1. So, as long as I is less than or equal to 5, the loop will keep running. Inside the loop, we print the current value of I, but we must remember to increment I with I plus equals 1. If we forget this, I would always be 1. the condition would always be true, and we would create an infinite loop that would run forever. Let's run it. So as expected, the output is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, let's flip the logic and count down instead. We start count equals 5, and as long as count is greater than 0, so while count is greater than 0, we print it. Print count. Count equals count minus 1. So we start at 5, and as long as count is greater than 0, we print it and decrease it by 1 each time. The loop will print 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The key idea with while loops is that the stopping point isn't based on a sequence, but on a condition. It keeps running as long as that condition is true. Loop control statements. Sometimes you want more control over loops. What if you need to stop the loop early? Or maybe just to skip one particular item? That's where loop control statements come in. The two primary control statements are break and continue. Think of break as a stop button. When Python encounters a break statement inside a loop, it immediately stops the loop completely, even if there are still items left to process or the loop condition is still true. And if a break is the stop button, continue is the skip button. It skips the current iteration and moves to the next one. Alright, let's make the difference between break and continue crystal clear with some real code examples. In the first loop, we are iterating from 1 to 5. But inside the loop, we have a condition. If I double equals 4, then break. This means the loop will stop completely at that point. So the output is only 1, 2, and 3. Now, in the second example, we have the same loop, but we use continue instead. Here, when I becomes 4, the continue statement is triggered. The loop doesn't stop. It simply skips that iteration and moves on with the rest. So the output is 1, 2, 3, and 5. Now let's open PyCharm and try these examples together. Let's start with a break in a for loop that goes from 1 to 5. For I in range 1, 6. So inside the loop, I'll add a condition. If I double equals 4, I'll use the break statement. So break, then print I. So the break statement will immediately stop the loop completely, even though there are still numbers left. Click on the run button. So as expected, the output is 1, 2, and 3. Now let's apply the same logic using a while loop. So I'll start I at 1, while I is less than 6. If I double equals 4, break, print I. I'll keep looping while it's less than 6. Again, if I becomes 4, the break statement will stop the loop. That means only... Oh my god, I'm creating an infinite loop. Can you spot the error here? I didn't increment I by 1. I should stop I plus equals 1. Or you can type I equals I plus 1. Now let's run the code again. So now as expected, 1, 2, and 3. Let's switch to the continue statement. Here's our for loop again. This time, when I is 4, we don't break, we just continue. This means it skips this iteration. and moves to the next one. Let's run the code. So as expected, the output is 1, 2, 3, and 5. Notice that 4 is missing. Finally, let's see how continue works in a while loop. So I'll comment out these lines of code. I'll start I at 0, I equals 0. We have the condition while I is less than 5, I plus equals 1, if I double equals 4, colon, continue, print I. Now, let's walk through this loop iteration by iteration. For the first loop, we start with I equals 0. The condition I is less than 5 is true. Then we do I equals 0 plus 1. So I becomes 1. Now we print I, which is now 1. For the second loop, I is 1, right? The condition still true. We do I equals 1 plus 1. So I becomes 2. Then we print 2. For the third loop, I is 2. Still less than 5. We increase it by 1. So now I equals 3. We print 3. Fourth loop, I is 3, condition true. We increment it by 1. So I becomes 4. But the if condition says if I double equals 4, continue. So the continue statement skips the rest of the loop. So nothing gets printed this time. Now I is 4, condition still true. So we enter the loop again. We add 1. So I becomes 5. We print 5. Now I is 5. The condition I less than 5 is false. So the loop ends. Now you might be wondering, what happens if we move the I plus equals 1 line to the bottom of the loop and let the loop run until I becomes 10. So I less than 10, and this line, we will move it to the bottom of the loop here. Run the code. As you can see, we get 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's break down the loop step by step. For the first loop, we start with I equals 0. The condition I less than 10 is true. Then we print 0. Then we increment I by 1. We do the same for the second, third, and fourth loop. In the fifth loop, we start with I equals 4. But the if condition says if I double equals 4, continue. So the continue statement doesn't just skip the print statement. It also skips the increment of I. That means I stays stuck at 4 forever. The condition I less than 10 is always true and the loop never ends. So here it's a little bit tricky, so pay attention. Project. Now, let's put everything we learned into a fun project, a number guessing game. Write a Python program that generates a random number between 1 and 20 using random.randint. Gives the player 5 attempts to guess it using a for loop. At each attempt, ask the player to enter a guess, skips invalid inputs with continue, ends the game with break if the guess is correct. If the guess is too low, show too low. If the guess is too high, show too high. Shows game over and the correct number if all attempts are used. Alright, let's walk through this project together step by step. First, we import the random module. Import random. We haven't covered modules yet, but think of them as a toolbox that gives us access to ready-made tools in Python. Now we create a secret number between 1 and 20 using random.randint. So secret number equals random.randint 120. Randint is one of the tools from that random toolbox that lets us pick random numbers. Now let's welcome the player and tell them what the game is about. So print welcome to the number guessing game. Print, guess the number between 1 and 20. You have 5 attempts. We want to give the player exactly 5 attempts. We will use a for loop with range 1, 6. So for attempt in range 1, 6, guess equals input f string attempt, I open the curly braces, attempt, enter your guess. So inside the loop, we ask the player for their guess. Notice the f string, it shows which attempt they are on. And remember, the range 1, 6 goes from 1 to 5. The player might type letters instead of numbers, so we need to check if the input is actually a number. For this, we use the isDigit method, which checks if all characters in a string are digits. If the input is not a number, we show an error message and skip this attempt using continue. So if not guess dot isDigit, print invalid input. Please enter a number. Continue. If the input was all digits, we safely convert it into an integer. Guess equals int guess. Now, let's compare the guess with the secret number. If guess double equals secret number, print congratulations, you guessed the number correctly. Break. So if it's equal, I'll print a congratulations message and use break to end the loop. If it's smaller, elif, guess less than secret number, print too low, try again. Otherwise, I'll say too high. So else, print too high, try again. Now this part might look a little bit strange. We are putting an else statement that lines up with our for loop, not with an if statement. This is a special trick in Python. This else block only runs if the for loop finished all its rounds from 1 to 5 without a correct guess. So in this case, we print f strings game over, the number was secret number. So inside this special else, we reveal the secret number and tell them game over. And that's it, our first game using loops, conditions, and a few new tricks. Let's run and see how it works. Welcome to the number guessing game. Guess the number between 1 and 20. You have 5 attempts. Attempt 1, enter your guess. Let's say 13. Too high, try again. Attempt 2, enter your guess. Let's say 9. Too low, try again. Let's say now 10. Too low, try again. 11. Too low, so it's 12. Congratulations, you guessed the number correctly. Try writing and running this project on your own and let me know in the comments how it went for you. Now it's your turn. For homework, try solving these small exercises. Use a while loop to print numbers from 10 down to 1. Use a for loop to print all even numbers between 1 and 20. Write a loop that goes through the list apple, banana, cherry and prints each fruit. You can find the solution and all code examples in the GitHub link provided in the description below. Great job! In this tutorial, we learned about iterative statements, explored Python sequences, understood how the range function works. We also covered loop control statements. And finally, we brought it all together by building a number guessing game. In our next tutorial, we are going to dive into a very important topic, data structures. We will start with lists, then move on to tuples, dictionaries, and sets. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more Python tutorials.